I leaned back in the leather chair, the city skyline stretching wide beyond the glass walls of my office. Morning sunlight spilled across the room, catching the gold trim on the nameplate that read, Olivia Reed, Chief Executive Officer. My silk blouse whispered against my skin as I adjusted it, taking a slow breath. On the surface, I was composed, every detail in place. My hair smooth, my nails painted in a subtle shade of rose, my heels resting lightly on the polished floor. To anyone walking in, I looked like a woman who'd had it all figured out for years. But the truth? A part of me still remembered the sting. The sting of being told I wasn't ready. The sting of watching someone less capable get the promotion I had worked night after night to earn. A soft chime broke my thoughts. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Olivia, your 10 a.m. is here. Should I send him in? I glanced at the calendar glowing on my screen, my pulse quickening. The name staring back at me felt almost unreal. Daniel Harris. My old boss. The man who once held my career in his hands and slammed the door in my face. I smoothed the crease of my skirt, the faintest smile tugging at my lips. Life had a strange way of circling back. Today, Daniel Harris wasn't here to evaluate me. Today, he was here to answer to me. And he had no idea what was waiting on the other side of this door. 2 years ago, I was standing outside Daniel Harris's corner office, clutching a folder so tightly my knuckles had gone white. I'd stayed late for weeks, pulling reports, leading projects, smoothing over client issues that weren't even mine to fix. Everyone in the department knew I was next in line for the promotion. Everyone except, apparently, the one person who mattered. I knocked softly. Come in, Daniel's voice called, smooth but sharp. His office smelled faintly of leather and stale coffee. He didn't look up when I entered, just scribbled something on a yellow legal pad before gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat, smoothing the hem of my blazer over my knees, heart pounding. I could feel the bead of sweat forming at the base of my neck, hidden beneath my hair. Finally, he looked up, adjusting his tie with a practiced arrogance. Olivia, he said, his tone flat. You've done fine work. Fine. The word hit like a slap. I wanted to talk to you about the senior associate role. I began, trying to keep my voice steady. His lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Yes, about that. We've decided to move in another direction. The role will be given to Mark. I blinked. Mark? He's been here 6 months. Daniel raised a hand, cutting me off. Mark has leadership qualities. You, Olivia, you're diligent, yes. But leadership requires something else. Presence. Authority. Perhaps a bit more polish. My throat burned. I swallowed hard, fighting the lump that threatened to choke me. Are you saying I'm not qualified? I'm saying, he leaned back, folding his hands over his stomach. You should be patient. Keep your head down. Earn your place. Don't rush. My fingers curled tight around the folder in my lap. All my late nights, my sacrifices, the weekends spent alone in the office while others were at home with their families, reduced to this condescending dismissal. I stood slowly, the legs of the chair scraping against the hardwood. Thank you for your time, I said, my voice clipped, betraying none of the fire raging inside. As I turned to leave, my hand brushed against the small silver bracelet on my wrist, a gift from my grandmother, who used to tell me, Olivia, don't ever let anyone decide your worth. You write that story yourself. The words pulsed in my mind as I walked out of Daniel Harris's office. I didn't know exactly how, but I swore I would never again sit across from a man who thought he could measure me in half-hearted compliments. I was done waiting for permission to rise. Walking out of Daniel's office felt like walking out of a cage. I didn't quit that day, not yet. But something inside me shifted. Every meeting after that, every spreadsheet, every client call, I realized I was giving my talent away to people who would never see it. So, a few weeks later, I cleared out my desk, tucked my grandmother's bracelet safely into my bag, and left without looking back. The first months were brutal. I rented a tiny studio in Brooklyn with paint peeling off the windowsills and the sound of the subway rattling through the floorboards at night. My office was a wobbly IKEA desk shoved against the wall, littered with coffee cups and half-scribbled notes. I tried freelancing at first. Late nights blurred into dawn as I drafted proposals, cold-emailed clients, and second-guessed every word I wrote. More than once, I caught my reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror, hair in a messy bun, mascara smudged, asking myself if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. But then small wins began to appear. A local startup took a chance on me. They didn't care that I was young or female, they just wanted results. I poured everything into their campaign, and when their sales doubled, word started to spread. One client became 3. 3 became 10. Before long, I had more work than I could handle alone. That's when I met Monica Alvarez, a sharp, seasoned business consultant who had fought her own battles in male-dominated boardrooms. "You've got fire," she told me over coffee one evening, her dark eyes steady on mine. "But fire without direction burns out. Let me help you build structure." Monica became my mentor, teaching me how to scale, how to pitch to investors, how to protect my ideas. She didn't coddle me. She pushed me harder than anyone ever had. And I loved her for it. The nights were still long, but now they were filled with purpose. I learned how to run financial models, how to negotiate contracts, how to walk into a room and command attention without shrinking. The day I signed my first six-figure contract, I sat in my little apartment with tears streaming down my face, clutching my grandmother's bracelet like a lifeline. For the first time, I felt unstoppable. But I kept quiet. On social media, I posted simple updates, a photo of my coffee mug, a vague note about exciting projects. I didn't brag, didn't broadcast my wins. I wanted to grow in silence, away from the eyes of people who had once underestimated me. Within 2 years, that silence had blossomed into something Daniel Harris could never have imagined. I wasn't just a freelancer anymore. I was the founder of a thriving firm. My name was whispered in rooms I hadn't even stepped into yet. And slowly, quietly, I built the empire that would one day put me in the very chair Daniel thought I'd never earn. I had traded his dismissal for my determination. And my determination was paying dividends. The knock on my office door was firm, confident, the kind of knock I remembered all too well. My assistant pushed it open, and there he was. Daniel Harris. His hair was a little grayer now, his suit a little tighter around the middle. But that smugness, that air of self-importance, it hadn't changed at all. He walked in like the room belonged to him. For a moment, I almost laughed. "Olivia," he said, extending a hand as if we were old friends. "It's been a while." I rose gracefully, my heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The bracelet on my wrist caught the sunlight, glinting like a secret I'd carried through every battle. I shook his hand lightly, noting the faint hesitation in his grip. "Yes, it has," I said smoothly. "Please have a seat." He lowered himself into the chair across from me, eyes wandering around the office. They lingered on the art piece hanging behind my desk, a bold canvas Monica had gifted me after my first major acquisition. His gaze slid to the mahogany shelves lined with awards, framed contracts, and photos of me with industry leaders. I watched his face shift, curiosity flickering into something like unease. "So," he began, trying to steady his voice, "I understand there's been some restructuring. I was told to meet with the new CEO. Imagine my surprise when your name came up." He chuckled, but it rang hollow. I leaned forward slightly, resting my elbows on the desk. "Surprised? Why? Didn't you always say I lacked presence?" The color drained a shade from his face. He cleared his throat. "Well, you've clearly done well for yourself. Congratulations. Truly. But let's be realistic, Olivia. Running an entire corporation of this scale, it's a lot to manage." His words were careful, but the condescension was the same as years ago. Only this time it didn't sting. It fueled me. I smiled, slow, deliberate. "Daniel, let me clear up any confusion. I didn't just do well for myself. I built this. Brick by brick, deal by deal. And now." I spread my hands, gesturing to the view behind me. The sweeping skyline, the building that bore my company's name at the top. "Now you report to me." Silence. the kind that presses against the walls and leaves no air to breathe. He blinked. What do you mean? I said, my voice calm but edged with steel. This company is under new ownership. My ownership. You didn't promote me when you had the chance. So I created something bigger. And then I bought this place. Which makes you, Daniel Harris, my employee. The smugness collapsed from his expression. His jaw worked, but no words came. His eyes darted around the office again, as though the furniture might confirm what he couldn't process. Finally, he managed, You can't be serious. I leaned back, folding my hands, the bracelet cool against my skin. Oh, I'm very serious. And here's the best part. You'll be working directly under me. Consider it poetic justice. For the first time since I'd known him, Daniel Harris looked small. His shoulders hunched slightly, his confidence faltering under the weight of reality. I let the silence linger, savoring the shift in power, before finishing softly. You once told me I lacked authority. Look around you, Daniel. Authority is sitting right in front of you. The man who once denied me now sat frozen, his future tethered to the very woman he underestimated. And in that moment I knew this was only the beginning of my victory. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in the chair, his hand tugging at his tie as though it had suddenly grown too tight. His eyes flicked to the window, then back to me, searching for some kind of escape. Olivia, he said finally, voice strained, let's not make this personal. We're both professionals. I've spent years in this industry. And in all those years, I interrupted gently, you never once thought I was worthy of standing beside you. You had the chance to see my potential, Daniel. You dismissed it. His lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't argue. I rose from my chair, walking slowly around the desk. My heels clicked against the marble, steady and deliberate. When I stopped beside him, I spoke quietly but firmly. You're here today because I chose to keep you. That alone should tell you how far I've come. But I don't keep people who drag others down. So, if you want to remain a part of this company, there are conditions. He looked up at me, pride warring with panic. Conditions? Yes. I folded my arms. First, you will treat every member of this team with respect, regardless of gender, age, or background. No dismissive comments, no arrogance. I won't tolerate it. He nodded stiffly, jaw tight. Second, I continued, you will acknowledge contributions openly. If someone delivers results, you give credit where it's due. No more taking ideas and stamping your name on them. His face flushed. He didn't deny it. Third, I said, lowering my voice, you will report directly to me. Every project you oversee, every decision you make, it crosses my desk first. Transparency is not optional. Daniel's shoulders slumped slightly. The reality was sinking in. He wasn't untouchable anymore. I walked back to my chair, pausing to glance at the silver bracelet glinting against my wrist. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. You write that story yourself. Sitting down, I added one final condition. And lastly, Daniel, you will never again underestimate the woman in the room. Not me. Not anyone. Because if you do, you won't just lose respect. You'll lose your place here. The silence stretched between us. His eyes darted downward, then back up, but the bravado was gone. He gave a small, reluctant nod. I understand, he murmured. I leaned forward, my tone softening but not losing its edge. Good. Because believe it or not, I don't want to see you fail. I want to see you grow. But growth requires humility, something you've avoided for far too long. For the first time, he looked almost human. The arrogance had cracked, replaced by something raw. Maybe shame, maybe fear. I offered a small, measured smile. Consider this your second chance. Don't waste it. Daniel swallowed hard, then stood slowly. He didn't meet my eyes this time as he muttered, "Yes, ma'am." And just like that, the power balance shifted. The man who once reduced me to trembling hands and bitten lips now stood before me, humbled, accountable. And I knew he would never forget who held the authority in this room. Weeks passed, and the shift in Daniel became noticeable. He no longer strutted into meetings with that unchecked ego. Instead, he listened. He asked questions. Sometimes his voice carried the awkwardness of a man unused to humility, but it was there nonetheless. I watched him pause before interrupting younger associates, watched him give credit where it was due. It wasn't perfect, change never is, but it was real. And for the first time, I realized he might actually be learning. But this story was never about Daniel. It was about me. Late one evening, long after the office had emptied, I stood by the window with the city lights sparkling below. The reflection in the glass was almost unrecognizable compared to the girl who once walked out of Daniel's office, holding back tears. I thought about the subway nights in my crumbling apartment, the coffee cups, the doubts that clawed at me when I was too exhausted to keep going. I thought about Monica's tough love, and my grandmother's words, etched into my memory like scripture. My gaze dropped to the silver bracelet on my wrist. I ran my fingers over it gently, a smile tugging at my lips. That simple piece of jewelry had been with me through rejection, through hunger, through triumph. It was more than an accessory. It was a reminder that my worth had never been his to decide. Behind me, the office was quiet. But inside me, there was a roar, a steady, undeniable voice that had grown stronger with every battle. I turned away from the window, switching off the lights. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new negotiations, new moments where people might question me. And I was ready for all of it, because the truth was no longer hidden. It was written into the skyline, into the company that bore my name, into the respect I had carved with my own hands. Daniel once told me I wasn't ready for leadership. Now he called me boss. And that single word carried all the power, all the vindication, all the grace I needed. I closed the office door behind me, whispering the line that had become the anthem of my life. They tried to deny me a seat at the table, so I built the table, and now they sit at mine.